speaking of S-ranked movies, we've got the 2010 film Shutter Island. If you don't know about this movie, then go watch it because we're going to be spoiling this movie. This was my pick. This is the movie about what we initially think is an investigation happening at an insane asylum. But it turns to be a fucking psychological thriller about a guy who is actually insane himself, and they're trying to basically help him through the process and like rehabilitate him.
Fun fact, the title Shutter Island is an anagram of truth and lies.
Oh,
bad fun fact. I'm not a
that.
huge fan of that one. I'm giving this film an A-. Dylan, where are you at?
I think I gave it a B+. No, that's not true. I gave Elysium a B+. What the fuck did I rate this movie? I gave it an A.
Tanner.
I am sitting at an S-.
This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I have an S+.
I had a feeling.
This should be unsurprising to anybody that knows me. This movie, again, one of my favorite movies of all time. I have literally no qualm with it whatsoever. I think it's emotionally gut-wrenching. I think it's incredibly well acted. I think it's very well paced. It's incredibly engaging. I think the twist at the end is really fantastically done. It's just a really fucking super good movie in my eyes. I'm just a really big fan. I have really nothing to talk about it with, to be completely honest with you. It's just on a fucking, like, pillar in my head. So I guess I'll just leave it to you guys.
I'm in a similar boat to you where, like, this is kind of a Shawshank for me, where it's like, I can only say, oh, it does XYZ well so many times, you know, but, the things that really, really stand out is it's a great script and a great ending. To be honest, throughout most of it, I was kind of like, it's really well made and well acted and whatever, but I don't know if I'm really feeling it or whatever. And then they finally give us the glimpses into what's really going on. And then from that point on, I'm like, okay, I got it. It all came together there at the end. And now I'm like, oh, fuck, this is a really, really fucking good movie.
It's so smart. And it doesn't treat you like you're fucking stupid too. Like, I think it drip feeds you just enough to put it together. And like, it also is like, it's subtle enough where you can get to the end of the movie and not to have suspected anything, frankly, and be just completely fucking dumbstruck. I will also say, like, one more piece here. I've watched this movie so many fucking times, and I think it only gets better on subsequent watches when you can, like, actually see the little, like, mistakes that are being made in the play they're putting for our main character, which I think is really fun.
That was one of the things I liked a lot about being able to do a second watch through here. Because, like, going into it initially, you don't know what exactly is happening, but yeah, very fun on a second watch. They're just, like, so many little things that can clue you into like what's actually happening here if you know what to look out for. Like there are like weird blink and you miss it, like little moments, like when the woman like takes a drink of water but there's nothing there. Little character interactions where it's like, the head psychologist and the staff where there'll be like just like even just like these little like knowing looks that they'll share where it's like, oh damn, look at that shit. It's really cool. I'm a big fan of it. Like none of them are things that like trigger like major alarm bells on a first watch, but like once you know what you're looking out for, it's very cool. I'm gonna get my hater stuff out of the way here real quick. Some of the effects are pretty dated in this film, like particularly when he's like holding his wife in his arms and she fucking turns to dust or whatever the fuck. It looks kind of bad. It did not look particularly good. Some of the parts dragged a bit for me on the second watch through as well, I'm not gonna lie. Like, for the most part, it's like the dream sequences, the shit that I knew wasn't real, those were the moments where I was like, man, I really just want to move on from this already.
Yeah, I will say some of my only qualms with this movie are, in fact, the pacing. This movie isn't 100% my vibe. I'm really curious what past me was thinking, because I remember you and Jackson saying I really didn't like this movie, but for some reason I have a recollection of liking this movie, so I don't know what the hell happened. I think
we've just watched because like that was like one of the first movies you watched that was like much more kind of slow paced and like it wasn't like a big action fest or whatever.
You could just say I'm uncultured, man. It's fine. Anywho. No, I do agree, though. The rewatchability on this movie is very, very good. It's kind of like when you play a video game and you're like, you like the the reruns for it make it that much better, because then you go back and you do the secrets that make the story of the game better. It's the same way with this movie. I really appreciate it for that. I do think the acting in this movie is very strong. Leonardo DiCaprio and Mark Ruffalo both do fantastic jobs. The other big positives with this too are kind of like Nico said with the knowing looks. Like, when you realize about halfway through the movie, when they change him into, like, the facility clothes, and then you see how the caregivers are kind of, like, handling him around, and it's like, oh, this kind of feels routine for everybody. This feels like the motions that they've gone through before. And obviously, like I said, Nico mentioned it perfectly. You're not getting alarm bells your first time watching through this. Like, if you don't think about it, you don't even get alarm bells on your subsequent watches. But they don't make it obvious when you're going through this.
Yeah, like right at the beginning of the movie, there's that moment where the guard's like, all right, we need your firearms. And, like, you know, Leo, he just, like, hands it over. But Mark Ruffalo, he's, like, struggling to get it out. So he just, like, fucking hands him the whole fucking pouch. And it's like, oh, you know, you might think that, he's just, like, having a bit of trouble. But it's like, oh, he's never had to fucking do that before. That's the reason he's struggling.
So this movie is just really clever with everything it does, with its setups, with its interactions, and just how the hospital staff are, like, you know, and it's really cool too, because at some point in the movie, they kind of get you in on the insanity where you're kind of, at least for me, you're kind of wanting to side with our main character and like, oh no, this place is evil. They're trying to trick us. And I think that was really a really big problem with me the first time I watched this, is I thought in the end, the island won, like, let me see if I could recall it. I did think it was like they were drugging him, and I didn't like make the connection like he was a patient there. I thought it was just, in the end, the prison winning and just drawing him into, like, their facilities, because he was talking about how, like, people come to this island and they never leave, you never see him again. So I guess if anything, that just goes back to the cleverness of the movie, where it can really it's a gotcha for people, which is really fun to see, and how I can go from watching it that time and then having those details, going back through, watching it again, seeing the details, like the cup of water, and just being like, oh, wait, this is what that meant, this is what that meant, oh, this little thing happened here, and, you know, really, really cool, really cool.
Yeah, I'd say probably one of my favorite things about the ending, like, it isn't even just, like, the big twist itself, you know? It's, like, the moment where, like, after we've seen Leo have, like, his big breakthrough, and, like, you know, he understands, like, what exactly happened, he remembers his wife murdering his children, which, by the way, is probably the most intense moment of the film for me, just emotionally. But just, like, you know, after everything we've been through, and Mark Ruffalo sits down with him, and we see that he's regressed yet again into his delusions, it's just, that is, like, the most tragic moment by far. That part just fucking hit me. I totally forgot that happens.
I will say,
it's fucking brutal. Well, let me say one more thing about the very ending as well, is that they still even, like, leave it up to interpretation, because, like, it's a psychological thriller and it makes you think about what's happening a lot. And then they end on the shot of the fucking lighthouse, man, which, like, immediately is like, is this all happening? Like, because you can't fucking trust anything. Was our main character right? And they are just like you know, it's I think it's fun. It's heart-wrenching, and it still leaves up to interpretation, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like, even after, like, he starts walking away with people to go get his fucking lobotomy or whatever, he, like, says one, like, last quick thing to Mark Ruffalo, and it kind of makes your brain go, hang on. Okay, does he actually remember it all then? Like, does he actually remember?
Yeah, you could look at it as him, because he says the fucking, like, is it good to live as a, it's like, do you want to see yourself become, like, a villain, basically, that line, where, like, is he just letting this happen to himself because he doesn't want to, like, he did recover, but he just doesn't want to actually go through life knowing that he did this.
Exactly,
you motherfucker, that was my question. I was gonna pose a question to the audience here. It was like, do you think the line at the end where it's like, would you much rather live as a monster or die as a good person, or die as a good man, or however he said it? What do you think he meant by that? Because clearly he did regress, like you mentioned, but then he also willingly left with, like, all these facility people.
Well, supposedly he regressed, you know.
I don't think he regressed. I think that was him choosing to die.
I mean, I don't think he's gonna die. He's just dying to self, I suppose.
Sure.
He's functionally dying.
Yeah.
I do think at the end of it all, he's just acknowledging that he's a functionally broken individual, and part of him knows that, and he he posed that question not for Mark Ruffalo, but for himself, and he'd much rather, get lobotomized thinking he is a good person doing the right thing, instead of, the reality that he actually lives in, where he just fucking shot and killed his wife because, she did a bad thing. So I think that ending does a lot to make you think, and it makes you kind of go back over the whole movie and be like, okay, like we've been talking about this whole time, what's real and what's not real? What do we believe? And I think that's what gives so much power to the subsequent watches to this movie.
Well, fellas, do we have anything else to say about Shutter Island?
No, I'm satisfied.
I love this movie!
I think it's ironic that despite this being a psychological thriller, we had less to say about this than the fucking Long Walk.
This one is a more conventionally good movie, There's not much to talk about. The Long Walk is a lot more controversial, I suppose.
That is valid, I suppose. Controversy beats psychological horror or whatever.
Alright, well, I could see myself bumping it up in the future, but I'm gonna stick with my A- for now.
I am not going to wait till the future. I think I am gonna give it a little bit of a leg up here and give it an A+.
I'm gonna stick with my S-.
Dylan, bless your soul, you bumping it up to an A+ actually bumped it into S- overall. I'm sticking out my S+, unsurprisingly. But yeah, I was at an A+, and now it's an S- overall. How exciting.
Badass. We're on a friggin' roll, dude.
But yeah, we've had some solid movies these last few weeks.